UX makes app and website interfaces useful, while UI makes the same interface beautiful. And product design does both, making the interface useful as well as aesthetically pleasing. So what is the distinction between user experience design, user interface design, and product design? UX designers are primarily concerned with the usability of the product. They focus on how the product works. UI designers focus on the visuals and the aesthetic experience of the product. And product designers do both. They do UX design and then they do UI design. They focus on the overall feeling and the experience of the product, both from the UX and the UI perspective. I would say the term product designer encompasses both skill sets and responsibilities. My experience is product designers are usually UX designers mainly. They do have a stronger UX side. I'm not saying they are bad at UI design. They can do UI design really well as well, but the UX skills are a little bit stronger than the UI design skills. Let me know if you experienced otherwise. Okay, so let's define these two terms. UX design or user experience design is about designing the whole experience. For example, think about an app. UX designers help decide the features, what should be in the app and how it should work. While UI design or user interface design is about designing the visual experience. They also design the same app, but they are responsible for the look of the application. The distinction between the two roles isn't that simple though, because if you work for a larger organization, the two roles have overlapping areas and they need to work collaboratively. And if you work for a smaller company, it's required to do both well. So that's why companies came up with the new terminology. Okay, it's not that new. So that's why companies came up with a new terminology, product designer. So how do UX and UI designers collaborate during a design process? Research and UX design is usually the first step when deciding to build a product or an application. UX designers are in charge of the research that will validate or invalidate the initial product idea, and it will guide the product development. After the prototype has gone through multiple iterations and it is finalized, well, at least for the time being, the UI designer steps in and starts working on the visual design, interaction design, including micro-interactions. In an ideal product design and development world, this would be a linear journey. However, and I'm sure you guessed, this is not the case. It really depends on many factors, but in my experience, one of the most determining factors is basically who's charge of the UX and who's charge of the UI design. Is it the same person? Is it the same team? Or is it a completely different team within the company? Let's take a look at the tasks that UX and UI designers do so that we can see where they overlap and where they are different. UX design starts with the research, understanding users' behavior. They run discovery workshops both with users and the product development team to understand the problems that need to be solved. Once the problem identified, they conceptualize solutions. They usually come up with different ideas and wireframes. Then UX designers prepare prototypes for usability testing. And just so you know, this doesn't need to be a high-fidelity prototype. It could be a pen and paper, low-fidelity prototype. Once they figure out the best solution to the problem, they hand over the wireframes, the concepts to the UI designer. From here, UI designers use this information to create visually appealing and easy to understand interfaces. To give you a tangible example, let's just have a look at Skyscanner. Let's take a look at the screen. So what do you think? Who did what? Which part of the website was done by a UX designer? Which part of the website was done by a UI designer? I would encourage you to pause this video and just have a think on your own. So UX designers decided how the search functionality works and what people want out of search. They decided how many options are shown on the search result page and how filtering works on the subpage. And then the UI designer's task would be to take all of that and make it clear how those things work. We can easily see how this list is sorted because the UI designer applied a darker color to highlight the selected sorting option. Both areas are equally important when it comes to designing a product, because you can create a great user experience, but if the UI doesn't show clearly what's happening, then it's not a good user experience. So overall, it's not a good product design. The overlap between UX and UI designers occurs where there is a connection between conceptual and visual work. For instance, UI designers might do wireframing, and UX designers might be required to do high-fidelity mockups. It really depends on the company and the actual job description. And I understand it can be confusing because whenever you go to a job site, companies using UI design, UX design, and product design terminology interchangeably. You need to read the job description to determine what you're actually signing up for by taking the job. If you see UX/UI designer position, that is essentially a product designer position, and the company would like you to do a little bit of both. As you can see, it is nearly impossible to separate UX from UI and UI from UX design. I created a free guide for you, so if you would like to get your own copy, then head over to my website to download it. The link is in the description box. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. My name is Nikki, and I see you next time. Bye.